Let's talk about the power of tiny changes. My name is Seth. I'm a full-time fantasy author who likes making YouTube videos, and I hope you find value in this video. One of the greatest moments of my life up until this point came completely unexpectedly, out of the blue. I woke up that morning, and it was a completely normal day. I went to work, I got home, and I went to hang out with one of my friends. Up until that point, absolutely nothing out of the ordinary had happened, but something extraordinary was about to. We were hanging out, and he kept giving me these looks. And if you've ever been in a situation like this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're kind of like these side eyes that are like, I don't quite know how to bring this up because I'm kind of embarrassed about it, but I've got something to say. Finally, I was like, dude, just tell me what's going on. Clearly you have something to say, just lay it on me. And he said, so when does your next book come out? And I was stunned. I was like, wait, you know that I write books? And over the next few minutes, it comes out that he had been secretly reading all of my books because when he first picked them up, he thought they were going to be terrible, but didn't want to tell me in case I was like, hey, what'd you think? And he had to tell me that I sucked. And so he had been reading them in secret, but he liked them so much and he couldn't wait to read the next book. So he had to ask me about it. And in that moment, I experienced something that I had never experienced before. You see, many years earlier, I had set out to become a good writer. I had decided that I wanted to take a crack at writing full time. And so I had sat down at my computer and I had started working. And I got some positive feedback along the way, and I got some negative feedback along the way, and I kept going, and I kind of put my head down and I was just grinding it out. And then all of a sudden, I wake up this day and I find out that I'm actually kind of a good writer. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head. Actually, instead of a light bulb, it was more of an explosion. In that moment of realizing, oh, wow, he actually likes my books, not just because we're friends, but because they're good books. It was a genuinely amazing experience. But why am I telling it to you? I'm telling you because there's one single question that led me to that point. One question that I asked over and over and over and over again, and over and over and over again, that took me from saying, I want to do this thing, to having actually done it. A question that I think you can apply in your life, that you can get the same kind of value out of that I did. And the question is super simple. What is one thing I could do better? Every time I engaged with somebody about my writing in the years leading up to that moment, I asked that question. What is one thing I could do better? If somebody gave me positive feedback and they were like, yeah, it's great, I loved it, I would say, thank you. What is one thing I can do better? And if somebody gave me negative feedback and were like, yeah, I didn't like this, and I didn't like this, and I didn't like this, I would say, okay, what is one thing that I could do better? If you had to pick out of all of those negative things, what is the one thing that you think is most important for me to do better? And that's it. I could end the video right here because honestly, all you need to do is ask that question over and over and over again. But because the algorithm likes longer videos, I'm going to give you a couple of tips. These are pretty important, in my opinion, if you want to create the relentless loop that is going to help you improve in any skill using this question. The first is make sure you're asking people you trust. This is a mistake I actually made early on in my career. If you go online and you ask people, what is one thing I can improve? They're going to tell you something, but honestly, the chances of it actually helping you, pretty minuscule. Make sure you are asking people you trust. Specifically, make sure you ask people who have achieved what it is you want to achieve. Anytime I asked this question to a writer who had read my work, what's one thing I can improve? I took what they said very seriously. Anytime I asked somebody who I knew really liked the genre I write in and had read a lot of it, I took their feedback very seriously. But at the same time, I didn't really take the feedback of random people on the internet very seriously. And occasionally I would run into somebody who was like, well, I just don't really like this genre. And I'd be like, okay, noted, thank you. What's one thing I can improve? And then I would take what they said with a grain of salt, judging whether or not it was appropriate for what I was writing. The second important thing to do is make sure that you actually do the things that people are telling you about. If you ask, what is one thing I can improve? And somebody says, hey, this is something you can improve. And you're like, great, thanks, awesome. And then you never do it, you've just wasted your time and their time. But if you can actually do it, if you can actually take their advice and implement it, and then come back to them and say, hey, I improved that thing. What's something else I can improve? You're going to find that you get better and better and better and better at an incredibly rapid pace. And then the last tip is just never stop. Never stop asking this question. In fact, I've had people tell me, Seth, our friendship is not going to be able to continue if you keep bothering me about this. And that's what you need to do. You need to be in that place where you are relentless about asking the question, what is one thing I can do to improve? What is one way I can make this better? And the real secret is that this doesn't just work with writing. It doesn't just work with a skill. It works in relationships. It works in all of life. If you're struggling with a relationship, take the person you love, sit them down, look them square in the eyes and say, what is one thing that I could do better in this relationship? And then actually improve it. And then once you've improved it, sit them down again and say, what is one thing I could do to improve this relationship? And then actually do that and just keep going. If you want a good book on this, definitely read James Clear's Atomic Habits. He talks about this a lot. Continual small improvements add up over time, increasing exponentially. But even if you don't read that book, just ask the question, what is one thing that I could do better? I hope you've gotten some value out of this video. If you have, definitely like and subscribe so that YouTube loves me, and I will see you next time.